The Naboo politician Padme Amidala had previously served as queen for her planet when encountering the young Force-sensitive Anakin Skywalker. Although Padme herself was not blessed with the gifts of Anakin, she would have a massive bearing on the outcome of the galaxy, influencing the decisions made by the Jedi Knight throughout the duration of a war, masterminded by Anakin's other influence, Chancellor Palpatine. With the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, Anakin chose the side of darkness in a bid to save Padme, and the Jedi she had known had seemingly been lost forever, as she never got to witness Anakin's redemption. But what if Padme had been a Jedi? Could she have a different influence on Anakin or the galaxy? As you'll find out, the Force powers of Padme could have changed the fate of the Jedi. The Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn had been slightly confused as he took his place aboard the Queen's starship on its way to Tatooine. His Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi could sense the unease from his usually calm master, but did not wish to press him for answers until they landed on the desert planet for repairs. Examining the hyperdrive, Qui-Gon could sense multiple Force signatures around the planet and asked Obi-Wan to stay on the ship whilst he examined them further. Bringing R2-D2, Jar Jar Binks and reluctantly Padme, the Jedi Master not even made it to Mos Espa before he could feel the Force sensitivity of the Queen disguised as Padme. Keeping it to himself for now, the Jedi Master entered into the settlement where he felt the other powerful presence he had been sensing in the young slave Anakin Skywalker. After managing to negotiate a risky deal with a Toydarian dealer Watto, the Jedi Master later conducted midichlorian tests on the two young Force sensitives, and also Jar Jar to make it appear as if it was a blood test, and Obi-Wan finds that both Anakin and Padme were Force sensitive. But aboard another ship above the planet had been the Sith apprentice Maul, utilising a signal he had received from the governor of Naboo to deduce that the Jedi and the Queen were on Tatooine. Through the darkness of the night, the Zabrak calmly landed his Sith infiltrator on one of the highest sand dunes, and equipping his macro binoculars, he saw the settlement of Mos Espa close to him. Leaping onto his repulsor craft speeder bike, Maul approached the settlement and felt the power of the Force sensitive Sidious had ordered him to capture. Entering the residential quarters, Maul ignited his blade and surged into the Skywalker home. Jar Jar Binks had been the first to be alerted to the presence of the Sith, having been sleepwalking, and his screams had alerted those around the home. Qui-Gon ignited his blade and dived in the path of an attack aimed for Jar Jar, and deflected the attacks of the dark side user as the other residents of Mos Espa awoke from their slumber. Qui-Gon purposely dropped his comlink to try and retrieve Obi-Wan from the Queen's starship, and R2-D2 managed to signal for the Jedi Padawan to fly over Mos Espa. But with the wind picking up, Qui-Gon knew Obi-Wan would need time to navigate, and as Maul took the battle to Watto's workshop, he wasted no time in decapitating the Toydarian slaver. The Sith had accidentally created the freedom for Shmi and Anakin, and the Jedi Master yelled for the Skywalkers to run to the ramp that was arriving, as he joined the group after a few more blocks against Maul. Arriving back on Coruscant, Obi-Wan accompanies Qui-Gon on a trip to the Jedi Council's chamber, where they reveal the midichlorian count within both Anakin and Padme. The Jedi are extremely reluctant to train them both, given their age and internal fears, but the Jedi Master is insistent, and after Queen Amidala giving her speech condemning the corruption in the Senate, they test them both for their Force capabilities. Although they can see the reasoning behind Qui-Gon proclaiming Anakin to be the chosen one, Padme's age and lower midichlorian count prove to be an obstacle, so Qui-Gon insists that both he and Obi-Wan train the Force sensitives. The Council is shocked by this request, as Obi-Wan was not qualified to have a Padawan of his own, and Qui-Gon would now be having two Padawans. Whilst the Jedi Council deliberate on whether to allow their training, Padme travelled to Naboo to meet with the Gungans, as Newt Gunray warned Darth Sidious of the imminent attack. The Sith Lord had received a disturbing report from his apprentice, that Anakin had not been the only Force sensitive on Tatooine, and ordered Gunray to trap the Jedi, to allow Maul to capture Padme and Anakin. The Neimoidian organises the Trade Federation army on the Naboo plains, but the army was a distraction designed to stop and split the Gungans from the Jedi, and the battalion of OOM command battle droids guard the royal palace. Padme and the Naboo security force realise the diversion that the Trade Federation had planned, and are forced to retreat, whilst Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan pave their way through to the Theed hangar. Approaching the doors to the power generators, they expected to see Maul, but the Zabrak had disappeared, and looking around for any sign of him, they tried to communicate with any members of the security force, but they are met by silence. The two Jedi run outside to where the Naboo security force should have been, and all of them are laying dead on the floor, with lightsaber wounds cut through them all. Qui-Gon immediately alerts the Jedi Council of the disappearances of both Padme and Anakin, when the voice of Chancellor Palpatine interrupted their meeting to reveal that Maul had indeed taken both the Queen and Anakin. Having heard the transmission from Chancellor Palpatine, the Jedi immediately turned from the palace grounds to the Naboo plains, searching the fallen battle droids for any clues as to the location of Maul, as Obi-Wan ran to the Gungan army, who are completing their victory. Captain Tarpals are personally taking care of the leading 009 battle droid and summoning R2-D2. The astromech examined his programming, then removed the back plating, establishing previous communications between the command droid and the central control computer on the Trade Federation ship. The Neimoidians had discussed the capabilities of the battle droids of Maul, and whilst the Zabrak was skeptical, he agreed that it would be a sufficient distraction whilst he took the Jedi prospects back to his home planet. The Jedi know that a transmission could have been tampered with in a bid to deceive the Jedi, and they rush back into the palace throne area. The leaders of the Trade Federation are comfortably seated in a circular formation, unmoved by the Jedi igniting their lightsabers, until Qui-Gon began to intrude into the mind of Gunray. The Jedi could not extract the exact details required, but managed to find that Maul had been telling the truth, and leapt into respective M1 starfighters out of the planet. With Qui-Gon leading the way, the Trade Federation abandoned their pursuit of the Jedi on the orders of Sidious, as the Sith Lord had ordered his apprentice to imbue the Force sensitives with the dark side. Arriving back on his home in his scimitar, the apprentice dragged the unconscious bodies of both Padme and Anakin through the red mist, where Mother Talzin and the Night Sisters welcomed the brother back to his planet. The clan lifted Padme and Anakin whilst chanting the words to an ancient ritual, until they are interrupted by the ships of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. The Jedi Padawan ignited his blade and surged towards the Night Sisters, before being met by the blade of Maul, and the entire clan started to fire their energy bows at the Jedi. Qui-Gon used the distraction that his Padawan had caused to find a blind spot in the clan, and then force-pulled the two bodies towards him, before the two Jedi leapt back into their ships. Watching them disappear from his planet, Maul roared in fury, but Talzin remained calm and told the Zabrak that everything was going to plan, before ordering him to return to Sidious. The Jedi that Maul had lost had travelled to Naboo to partake in the celebrations led by the Gungans, but quickly afterwards, Padme had been brought back to Coruscant and the Jedi Temple, and Obi-Wan is given the status of a Jedi Knight, which gave him the opportunity to train Padme. The Sith Lord Darth Sidious was displeased at Maul's failure to kill the dangerous Qui-Gon, and switching on his holoprojector to summon his apprentice. He regarded this to be his last failure before choking the Zabrak from his office. Maul began to lose control of his ship, spiralling back down towards his home planet and crashing amongst his brothers. The Chancellor did not tolerate failure, and asking for Masamida to prepare his ship, he calmly walked into his executive shuttle and set course for the planet of Sereno. Calmly landing by the pillars outside of the largest palace, his new apprentice Dooku bowed to him, having been disapproving of many of the Jedi Council's decisions, and sought more power. Beginning his training in the dark side of the Force, Padme and Anakin were making their own progress in the Jedi Temple, and in spite of the best efforts of the Council to separate them, they had become dangerously attached during Padme's latter stages of her reign as Queen of Naboo. After resigning from her role to become Naboo's representative in the Senate, Yoda knew the dangers of Padme and Anakin turning to the dark side, and invited Qui-Gon's Padawan to his quarters. Anakin remained closed to Yoda, but the Jedi Grand Master could sense the darkness rising in the Jedi, and decided he would have to face his worst fears for him to become a Jedi Knight. Travelling to the planet of Dathomir for the first time since his abduction by Maul, the Jedi Knight ignited his blade in caution, wondering what the Jedi had sent him here for, when he felt a chill run through his spine. Through the muddy swamps, the rebuilt figure of Maul appeared in front of him, and ignited his lightsaber, asking Anakin to walk towards him and become his apprentice to fulfill his potential. The Jedi leapt over the swamp and clashed blades with Maul, fueled by the hatred from his initial abduction from Naboo, and managing to disarm him, he placed his blade at his throat. Maul begs Anakin to end his suffering, but the Jedi pushed him back into the mist, and Qui-Gon emerged from a cave to applaud the Jedi, until they heard the voice that they thought they would never hear again. Qui-Gon and Anakin turned around into the mist, hearing the voice of none other than Shmi Skywalker. This had not been a part of the trial planned by Qui-Gon and Yoda, and before he could stop Anakin, the Padawan had ran into the murky darkness, and the Jedi Master began to give chase, hearing the sound of lightsabers somewhere in the distance. Charging with his blade in hand, Qui-Gon saw Anakin battling with the real Maul, and he leapt to the defense of his Padawan. Maul had been rebuilt by Talzin after his crash landing on Dathomir, and now sought revenge against both the Jedi and the Sith. As the Jedi began their assault, Maul continued to back off into the confines of a network of caves, and that was when the Jedi heard the voice of Shmi tied to a wall. Maul had managed to lay a perfect trap for the Jedi, having received a transmission from one of his spies on Coruscant, and to kidnap Shmi from the Lars home. As Anakin ran to free Shmi, he precisely threw his lightsaber at the bindings, and he caught her before she dropped into a chasm. But as the Jedi rushed back to Qui-Gon and Maul, he saw his master tiring, and placing Shmi on the floor, Anakin tackled Maul to the ground, and the Jedi sent Maul into the swamp, as they then managed to escape to Coruscant. Upon his return to the temple, Anakin was knighted by the Jedi Council, and after Padme had also passed her trials, their first mission was to investigate how Maul had managed to find the location of Shmi. Joined by Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, the Jedi searched the underworld for Maul's influence, and find the Zabrak's name being spoken in hushed whispers by bounty hunters. Suddenly, the Jedi hear shots firing near them, and hiding behind several supply crates, they see a bounty hunter in Mandalorian armour, silencing those that are mentioned Maul. Taking a visual scan of the attacker back to the temple, Jedi Master Terrace Nube examines the bounty hunter to be Jango Fett, one of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. The Jedi are unaware of his whereabouts, and the next logical move was to head to Mandalore to find more about Jango Fett, taking one of their small Corellian freighters. The four Jedi approached the Outer Rim planet, which had been subject to a rebuild from the recent Civil War, and landing just outside of the royal palace, Duchess Satine dismisses her guards to allow the Jedi to walk to her throne. Prime Minister Olmec is also present, and has the answers they required on Jango Fett, stating that he was not of Mandalorian origin, but merely was an owner of Mandalorian armour. The Jedi seemed to be at a dead end, when they all heard a large explosion in the city square. Igniting their blades, the smoke cleared to reveal that the Death Watch had made their return, and Vizsla proudly brandished his darksaber. Obi-Wan felt the rage boil within him at the thought of Satine being in danger, and challenging the warrior to a duel. Everyone else backed off to give them space. Using his jetpack to rise up into the air, Vizsla was met by Obi-Wan at the apex of his leap, and using the force to push him back into a statue, Vizsla retaliated with his flaming gauntlets. Obi-Wan calmly sidestepped the attack, and the duel grew in intensity and speed, until Obi-Wan used his superior skills to disarm the warrior, and caught his darksaber. Resisting the temptation to kill Vizsla, the Death Watch were rounded by the Jedi, and placed in the city's prison. Obi-Wan knew he could lure Jango Fett with a darksaber, and returning to Coruscant, Padme broadcast an attempt on her life from Vizsla, whilst Obi-Wan stood beside her with his darksaber, hoping he could draw out the bounty hunter. Returning to the underworld where they had previously seen him, Obi-Wan pretended to be drinking at the bar, when Jango sat beside him, and began to discuss a prize for the darksaber. Obi-Wan did not respond to the offer, and as the bounty hunter's patience began to wear thin, the other Jedi emerged from the shadows to capture him, and take him to one of the Jedi Temple's holding cells. Windu, Obi-Wan and Anakin interrogate Jango Fett, and after brief resistance, the Jedi managed to discover that he had been under the service of Count Dooku, and was being used to establish a clone template on Kamino, as well as tracking Padme and Anakin. The revelation that Dooku was working undercover for the Sith prompted a council meeting, and they worked out that neither Dooku nor Maul had been the master, meaning that there was someone else operating in the background. The question for the Jedi was who. With the revelation dawning upon the Jedi Council, Yoda regards the situation to be one of a state of emergency, and dispatches a large number of Jedi to track down the real Sith. As Qui-Gon and Anakin ventured to Kamino to find more about the clone army, Obi-Wan and Padme dispatched to Dathomir to try and extract the identity of the Sith from Maul. Arriving on the home of the Night Sisters again, waiting for them was Talzin, who did not share quite the same hatred to the Jedi as Maul, and guided them to her lair, where Maul was seated. Before the Zabrak could lash out, Talzin placed Maul under her control, and he revealed to them all who the real Sith was, in Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. The worst fears for the Jedi have been realised, and Obi-Wan goes back to the ship to inform the Jedi Council of this development. Yoda and Mace Windu are aware that Palpatine's route into the Republic could be impossible for the Jedi to trace, but first they had to eliminate him. Obi-Wan rushes back to the Night Sister village, but looking for Padme, he sees her under the spell of Talzin. Obi-Wan sees a wave of Night Sister magic flying towards him, and leaping out of the way, he quickly informs Qui-Gon and Anakin of what had happened to Padme, before being surrounded by the entire clan of Night Sisters, and concedes his lightsaber. On Kamino, the Jedi had been given a guided tour by the Kaminoans of the facility, when they received a desperate plea for help from Obi-Wan. The Jedi ran back to their ship, but on the platform, they are met by Count Dooku. The Sith apprentice asked Qui-Gon to understand his plans to destroy the Sith, but the Jedi Master refused, and the former Master and Padawan began to duel. Anakin looked for a way to intervene, and leaping onto the ship, he used his piloting skills to fire at Dooku, collapsing the platform. Leaving Dooku in the waves, Qui-Gon jumped into their ship, and they set course for Dathomir, hoping to rescue the other Jedi. Anakin felt a simmering rage at the thought of Padme being controlled, and running out of the ship, he violently force-pushed all of the incoming attackers, as Qui-Gon knocked over a cauldron of Night Sister magic to stop Padme's ritual. Returning to her normal self, the Jedi Knight summoned her blade, and they all managed to push their way past Talzin's reinforcements to free Obi-Wan. The cries of anger from the opposition are soon drowned out by the wash of wind over them, as Dooku had survived a fall on Kamino and tracked Qui-Gon and Anakin's ship. Attempting to run at the escaping Jedi, he is blocked by Maul and Talzin, who had not forgiven the Sith for their betrayal, and the Jedi are free to leave. The Jedi cannot arrive on Coruscant fast enough for their liking, as news of Dooku's encounter with the Night Sisters had reached the ears of Palpatine, and he immediately sought to leave to smooth matters over in the Senate. But as he began his descent down the turbolift, he is rocked by a detonation from above, sending him hurtling to the ground. Stopping his fall with the Force, he finds that he is surrounded by multiple Jedi Council members, as Padme points her blade at the Sith Lord, claiming that his regime had been exposed. The Sith Lord inwardly scowled at the failure to kill Maul, and as Masterminded revealed that the entire planet of Dathomir had been decimated along with its inhabitants, Palpatine made a move to the power grid. The Jedi are wary of chasing him, knowing Palpatine would be inflicting an immensely powerful blast, so Sazi Tin led a squadron of Jedi starfighters above the ground to trap Palpatine. The Sith was not put off by the Jedi's new plan, and unleashing a mighty roar, he used the power generator to enhance a hate-fueled explosion. The entire galactic city descended into darkness, and the buildings within the radius of the blast had been flattened, as Padme got to her feet. Anakin beside her had also coughed and spluttered back into life, and whilst he cleared the debris to free the other Jedi, Padme looked for any sign of Palpatine. The Jedi Knight hurled the debris to the epicenter of the blast, and there was only the presence of a putrid green liquid pouring from the nearby fuel refinery. The dark side had vanished, and returning to the Jedi Temple, Anakin and the healers began to revive the Jedi, then help rebuild Coruscant. The Jedi Order is eventually restored to its former glory, and Qui-Gon knew it had been right to push the Council into training Padme in the ways of the Force. That is it for What If Padme Was a Jedi. If you enjoyed this What If, please like this video, turn on the notification bell, click that subscribe button on this channel, as well as on my other channel What If Films. And as always, leave a comment on what if you'd all like to see next, and how I can improve my videos. Thank you all very much for watching, and see you next time.